Good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday, January 23rd. Hope you all having a great week so far. This video is going to focus on some longer range forecasting here for the winter in the United States. And the biggest question that people have been asking since we had such a cold week and now things are very quickly warming back up is winter over? Are we done? It's the middle of January. Are we pretty much finished? And I looked at some memories on social media of our last snowfall here in Raleigh, and it was 2 years ago this day yesterday. We have yet to see an accumulating snow since then. So it's a very legitimate question. You look at this graphic behind me, this is a look at the temperature forecast coming up, and all you see are reds here indicating much above average temperatures. Well, I'm going to kind of break this down for you guys, and I want to show you how these long range forecasts have been behaving. This is about a month ago. These were our forecasts for the month of January, and take a look at every single model run from the climate forecast system, the CFS, showing extreme warmth, 4 or 5 degrees Celsius above the average across the western portions of Canada, Alaska, into the north central plains, and extending into the northeast. That was the forecast. This has been reality. Now, it is going to change some. We're going to see some of this cold eventually wiped out here for the rest of the month, but we are too deep into the winter temperatures, the below average temperatures, to make up this deficit here and go completely warm. So forecasts were completely wrong this time last month. Taking a look here at the warmth that's coming up, we very well could see this end up busting on us in a big way. But here's a look at what our temperature prediction is for the next week, the next 7 days, and you can see an area of 20 degrees Fahrenheit above average centered over Western Ontario and northern Minnesota, and pretty much everybody here above average. The January thaw is what we call it. So taking a look at this now, you can certainly say to yourself, yeah, I don't think we're going to see much more winter. I mean, if you're in the northern US, you'll see winter, but it just won't be nearly as brutal as what the average would typically say. And if you look here at the upcoming week here, that warmth continues to intensify with respect to the average. This is the anomaly. And our average temperatures, by the way, are starting to rebound again once we've gotten over the hump here. We're past the midpoint of meteorological winter. That was January 15th. As we head towards February with the stronger sun angle, the longer daylight, we do see our averages slowly starting to rebound. So the fact that we're seeing anomalies climbing faster than the averages means, well, there's no sign of a blast of any kind of wintry weather here in the next week. Now, as we get into February, you can see some subtle shifts. Sorry, got an itch in my eye. Some subtle shifts coming in that the West is starting to cool off here. This is just one model run of the GFS. It is the ensemble mean. But you can see as we head towards close to Valentine's Day, the extremes start to shift and a much colder pattern starts taking over across the western United States. The East and the Great Lakes are still running above average, but this is not as extreme. So the days of wearing shorts here in the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic may get returned back closer to average by the time we get into the second week of February. And that shift continues. And this is not the only model run showing this. I'll show you a couple of others, but take a look here at leading into President's Day weekend here. We see a much cooler look across the country. New England and Eastern Canada, the Great Lakes are above average, but they're not nearly as extreme. So the answer to the question is, if you believe this model, and that's a big if, then winter certainly is not over yet. We're just getting a thaw for a couple of weeks before things return back to near or even below average for the remainder of February. That's just one model. Let's take a look at the European, and you can see the same area highlighted in warmth here over the next couple of weeks, and then cooling off across the west and the southwest here by the second week of February. Now, as we shift towards the middle of February and heading into the second part of February, you see significant changes coming. Remember, our temperatures are starting to climb on average, not quickly, but they are climbing. However, departures are dropping, meaning that temperatures for the second half of the month of February appear to be not just cooler than average, but significantly cooler than average for some of us. So for winter lovers, we have to stop canceling things before they happen and take a look at this and say, okay, there's definitely still an opening here for there to be some significant winter. Does that mean we're going to see major snowstorm after major snowstorm? Way too soon to make that kind of a call. I think it's more promising when cold air is here, but there's certainly no guarantee. We need to get the right storm track. We need to get into the right phase of the MJO, the Madden Julian oscillation. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. And we need to see a ridge in place here across the Rockies to really bring the cold down into the southeast. But take a look at this. As we head towards the beginning of the month of March, we are not in any hurry to warm up off the average. Of course, according to the European model, in fact, the warmth is locked up near the northern pole, near the North Pole, across northern Canada. The chilly air is in place here across the Rockies and across the eastern United States. This is the prediction. Let me show you the month of February here. We'll go back a little bit. And you can see where the cold is really centered across the west looks completely different than where it was here in January. We're shifting things west by a whole time zone at this point. But overall, the pattern is still favorable for cold weather. Here's a look at the climate forecast system. This is the one that really got blown up here about a month ago. It did a poor job. Not shockingly, this model still leads to warmer than average temperatures. I do think it has a bias. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but it loves to predict above average temperatures here in North America. There may be an agenda behind it. There may not. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not even going to speculate on it, but take a look here. Even the CFS is showing chillier weather across the eastern seaboard and the southeast briefly here next week, and then rebounding for a little bit. But then take a look at February. It is really looking cold here. This is Fahrenheit. And these greens indicate departures from average of approximately 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we're taking this over an entire week here, or at least a 5-day stretch. So to see a 5-day stretch of 10 or more degree below average temperatures sets us back to last week. That's basically what we were at. And this cold continues to be predicted here for the second half of the month of February. And take a look at the end of February. This is a significant outbreak of cold coming down, if it's correct. And we see this extending into the end of the month of February and still chilly weather in place as we head into March. So this could get exciting here for the second half of winter. Certainly not a winter is over situation at all. We're just looking at a temporary pause. This is halftime, to use the football analogy. We had some excitement here in the second quarter. Now halftime, things are pretty quiet. The halftime show stinks. We're all going out to take a break here, take a breather, and to just shake it out. Say, okay, we got the second half coming up. Well, things look a little more exciting here in the second half. So winter certainly not over. Here's a look at a representation of our upper level heights. This shows us where troughs and ridges are. The ridges are the brighter colors. Troughs are the cooler colors. Troughs typically lead to stormier, colder weather. And as we take a look here at the end of the month, we don't see anything too significant. We see troughs coming through the southern U.S., but this is all sending in moisture from the Pacific. This is not linking up with the colder air up north. In fact, we have a massive ridge here from the North Pole. So things definitely not favoring cold and snowy weather. But as we head into the month of February, we see more intense troughing, and we see an upper level low here over eastern Canada. And the ridge backs into western Canada, allowing colder air to drop down here into the Rockies, into the plains, and into the eastern United States here around Valentine's Day into President's Day. And it's not like that's just fleeting cold. It is just being renewed and renewed as we continue to see below average heights here. This is a piece of the polar vortex dropping down here into the Great Lakes at the beginning of March. And this will change. The details are going to be changing, but you see overall the entire United States wraps things up here. We're heading into meteorological spring, the beginning of March, and this does not favor warmth, severe weather, even significant floods across the South. What this favors is widespread cold. So stay tuned on this one. Definitely more favorable. Here's a look at what the snow totals look like. And again, just a projection, but you can see New England, Great Lakes have our best chance of seeing snow outside of the Rocky Mountains over the next few days. As we head into the beginning of February, it's still not going to look very wintry over the eastern United States. In fact, things retreat a little bit. The west turns more wintry. California gets blasted here with heavy mountain snow. That continues into the Rockies. But as we get past the 10th of February, you can see the trend line dropping south again. And again, this is no promise for Boston, New York, Philly, DC, Baltimore, Richmond of any kind of snow, but the trends are looking at least more favorable for that to happen by the second week of the month of February. And then the third and fourth week, we continue to see the trend line dropping south into the southern United States. So What you can take away from this is that number one, winter's not over. Number two, the chance of some wintry weather down south can return here for the second half of the month of February. And really, that continues into early March, albeit we see some lifting of that trend line. But the fact that it's still down here south of I-20 at least gives us a shot at maybe something later in the season. Here is a look at our phase diagram. This is the Madden Julian oscillation. And there's been geothermal underwater activity here off of Australia, which is kind of interfering with El Nino a little bit. What it's doing is it is allowing for more extremes, seeing, a result of this being a shift where much of the country is now heading above average, breaking up our cold. And everything on the right here indicates warm phases 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're currently in a phase 6. The projection is this to eventually cycle back into 7 and 8. These are colder phases. There is going to be a lag before this happens. We may get in there after February 5th, somewhere around the first, second week of February. But the effects are going to take a little bit more time to get the gates to open for that cold to really return. So I would bank on this happening more after the 10th of February, probably centered on the 20th. But there's a decent chance, assuming no more interference from the Western tropics, that we sit over here in the cold phases right into the month of March. Again, nobody is good enough to actually predict that, but we see some pretty significant proof of that happening here from a lot of our teleconnections. The Arctic oscillation is positive. That is shutting off the flow of cold air from the Arctic in North America. As we head, though, past about the 3rd or 4th of February, it does go negative, and there's a potential it could go significantly negative here after the 15th of February. That is favoring cold weather. The NAO, the North American oscillation, again, when it goes negative, that allows for a better chance for storms to impact the eastern United States. And that switchover happens around the 4th of February. It will probably take some time before we get a true block setting up, but around the 2nd, 3rd week of February again. And all that means very little in the southeast, south and east of the Appalachians. What we really need to see is a positive PNA. What that means is that the ridge would be centered over the Rockies, the cold air would flood down into the southeast, and combined with a negative NAO, we would see a better chance for a storm to bring winter weather into portions of the southeast. Maybe not Florida, but Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, eastern Tennessee. And when the PNA goes more positive, that certainly is going to look more promising. It does flirt with positive here in the next week. That means very little, though. Everything's progressive. When the other phases start lining up here after about the 10th of February and really towards Valentine's Day, 14th and 15th, and again, this is just a control run, but you can see the trend is certainly favoring a better shot at some winter weather. So definitely a loaded second half of winter here. Another thing I want to bring your attention to is what's going on in the Pacific. Those of you in San Diego, my thoughts and prayers are with you. A significant rain event yesterday led to flooding, our wettest January day on record. We're not finished with that. If you take a look here at this, what we call sting jet across the Pacific, this is a big atmospheric river. What it does is it sends moisture quickly across the Pacific, and we'll get a bit of a break in it. It breaks up over California here next Wednesday, or this Wednesday and Thursday, but only for it to reload again. And we see here next week that, again, we're going to see this jet ramming into California here by the end of next week, meaning it could be a very wet weekend next weekend, not this weekend, but the first weekend of February in California. And then after that, with that pattern change, we should see this start to shut off east of Hawaii. Hawaii's down in here. And this takes a dip south, meaning California gets a break from the onslaught of moisture. We still see some action over the southern United States, but this looks a little bit more like what we saw last week, where things dry out across the West. We see maybe more action across the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast region. Here's the official forecast at the end of January, beginning of February, 70% or more chance of above average precipitation. Honestly, I think it'll be more, but that's a prediction. And we see the threat for intense amounts of snow across the mountains, high winds across the West Coast, and very heavy rain. And I would definitely be concerned from the Bay Area on south for this to bring us some potential flooding here as we see this atmospheric river event. So anyway, that is the longer term. I'm going to take you back to the short term here. We've got a lot to talk about for the time being. Our big storm moving away from California, but we have big time rain projections here over the south central states into the southeast. We do have some leading winter weather with our thaw coming. Temperatures not quite recovering around the Great Lakes into the interior northeast. So there will be some wintry weather, and you can see quite a bit of moisture coming in out of the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to make things really wet here across the Gulf states. And we do have a flash flood watch from East Texas into northern Alabama, clipping southern Tennessee. There is definitely a huge rainfall potential in here, at least a moderate risk for flooding across the center of this area. We do have dense fog advisories stretching from Texas all the way up to Montana, as well as the California Valley. And we have a winter weather advisory from just south of Omaha and just north of Kansas City, right through the lower Great Lakes and into western portions of New England as we deal with some ice and snow here in the next couple of days. This is the NAM model, and you can see one piece of energy lifting through the Ohio Valley. That's going to bring snow north of it, some ice in pink here into northern PA here as we get into the afternoon hours today, but then shifting over to snow. That's piece number one. Piece number two's got more moisture with it. We're going to see the potential for some freezing rain over portions of Nebraska and Iowa, and that will lift slowly northeastward into northwest Illinois, southern Wisconsin here during the day tomorrow, even southeast Minnesota. So this is a very mild flow, but up there, mild often leads to a mixed bag of precipitation. The west will see another storm system moving into the Pac Northwest, but southern Cal gets dry. But take a look. We just have rain band after rain band here moving through Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, just a miserable pattern. The place to be right now is Florida, where we're going to see very warm temperatures and virtually no chance of any significant rain for the next couple of days. Here's a look at our 48-hour rainfall potential here. Significant amounts of rain, 5-6 inches possible in parts of East Texas, Louisiana, Southeast Arkansas, and Mississippi. This threat does shift a little bit more to the right here, or to the east into northwestern Florida, into Georgia and the Carolinas by the end of the week. Expect a wet weekend here in portions of the southeast while Texas gets a chance to catch its breath. But here comes the next wave of heavy rain moving into coastal Oregon, western Washington, northwestern California here by the weekend. And the next push comes behind that, farther down the coast of California towards Big Sur, and then towards Southern California as we get to the start of the month of February. So we really have a wet week coming for the south central U.S. into the mid-Atlantic states and Northeast. Things look a little bit better as colder air follows next week. We could have some wintry weather in here the first part of next week. Then we catch our breath and the West gets onslaughted here with heavy amounts of, I don't even know if that's a real word, onslaughted, but they get hammered here with heavy amounts of rain, and that will eventually make its way into the southern U.S. here towards next weekend. Let's take a look at potential snow. I'm going to move here pretty quickly, so feel free to hit pause and take a look at your location, but generally 2 to 4 inches of snow over the next couple of days. Most of that comes today across the Great Lakes, and then tomorrow into the interior Northeast and adjoining parts of Canada. I'll zoom it out here for 60 hours for you to see, but most of that's coming today, tonight, and tomorrow. Looking at the interior of the Northeast, we see that snow moving in this afternoon, picking up in intensity this evening, and another wave coming through further north into northern Maine, but generally a light snowfall for this region. Freezing rain going to continue to be an issue. Wave number one from the Chicagoland area into northern Ohio and into parts of upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania. Wave number two impacting Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin here Wednesday night into Thursday. And that, by the way, crosses over into Canada, and we could see significant icing across parts of Ontario and southwestern Quebec here Wednesday night into Thursday. So be preparing for that. Here's a look at the Northeast, and you can see generally 1 to 2/10 an inch of ice, but that's enough to cause issues into western New England, maybe even southwestern Maine. And then here's the next wave further north, but still impacting places like Ottawa, Montreal, parts of the mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And a lot of that's going to be later Wednesday into Wednesday night. We also have a threat for some severe weather, some tornado possibilities here across southeastern Texas, southwestern Louisiana today. A threat for some hail as well back around San Antonio. Tomorrow, a little bit bigger area of tornado chances, including all of South Louisiana and severe wind into Mississippi. And then Thursday, a marginal risk over the central Gulf region, including Mobile and western Florida. After that, I do think there's a possibility of some severe weather, but the dynamics aren't quite as good. So right now, the predictability level is still pretty low from Friday through the weekend. Temperatures have warmed up significantly. It's still chilly in the east, but definitely not as brutal as it has been. Big time cold, though, across eastern Canada, but that's going to just kind of brush northern New England and then head out as we see warmer air returning. This is the 24-hour switch, and we've warmed up 26 degrees in Pittsburgh, 27 in Bangor, 20 degrees warmer in places like Charlotte, North Carolina from this time yesterday morning. Here's a look at our predicted highs. Still cool across the east and the northern tier, but we're rebounding. Tomorrow's highs are going to be quite a bit warmer, though, as we get to 70 in Wilmington, 62 in Nashville. Amazing what a week's difference can be. As we head into Thursday, 84 degrees around Orlando, 83 degrees in Orlando, 72 in Raleigh, 76 in Columbia, 72 in New Orleans. So the Southeast will be roasting, even up to about 60 in DC. Friday, maybe pushing close to 70 degrees in Northern Virginia, mid 70s in the Carolinas, low 80s. It will be wet in here, but we're going to get some breaks. So it'll be warm. You won't need to run the heat. In fact, you might open up the windows for this. As we head to Saturday, still pretty warm across the entire area. Sunday, we do start cooling down some. You can see the colder air makes its way in. It just slips in the back door here through New England. And then here's a look at early next week. And it's colder across the Northeast next week, but closer to average here across the South. 67 in Orlando as that front drops south in the South Florida and the Keys here for the beginning of next week. I am heading to Orlando for work. I will be back on Saturday, but I'm not planning on doing another video until next week. Unless there's something major, I may hop on Sunday, but please be patient with me. I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to be pretty busy here with this conference I'm going to. So thank you all so much for your time. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. There's 16,000 of you, and you guys are awesome. You're rock stars. If each one of you can invite one person, that's going to help me get to my goal of close to 40,000 by the end of this year. It's a big goal, but one that I truly believe I've been called to do, and that is to increase my reach, and more importantly, to glorify God in front of more people, because I am a Christian and I truly believe that the Lord is my shepherd. He has called me to do this. He watches over me. Every day is a blessing, and I don't want to take any of that for granted. Dollar bills are nice. Growing an audience is nice, but in the end, it's all about keeping God happy and increasing my relationship with him so that he can bless me, so that, you know, through me, I can bless more people. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's to be a blessing to you guys. And I want to read a quick passage. This is one that a lot of us are maybe familiar with. Psalm 23, King James Version. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Those are powerful words. The author makes it very clear that we're going through valleys in our life. There is evil out there lurking, but God is our comforter. He's our redeemer, and a table has been prepared in front of our enemies. All we have to do is choose to believe and choose to have a relationship with God, and to choose to believe in the Savior Jesus Christ. And then at the end, he promises that we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Eternal life, John 3:16. Jesus has been given to us as a sacrifice so that we can live eternally with him. And that, friends, is great news, because you have the choice that you can make. And for me, it was a very clear choice. It took me 30 years to make it, but it was a very clear choice. And that was very truly, look, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'd rather roll the dice here and say, if this is all true, then it's something that I can buy into, because it's a powerful ending. If it's not true, what do I really have to lose? I mean, honestly. So I just wanted to share that good news with you, because every day is a blessing. Every day is an opportunity for me to grow my reach. This is how I plan to make a difference. God has called me to do this. He is a good God, and he can be very good to you as well. So I will pray for you no matter what you're going through, but feel free, if you'd like, to list any prayer requests, and I will take time to pray over you while I'm gone. Hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday. I'll catch you again next week. Be safe, and we'll see you soon.